Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source for Black news, views, and opinions. Happy Monday. Today is September 19th, and I'm Mimi Brown.
And I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo, and on today's report, the funeral for Queen Elizabeth II was today as millions of people lined the streets and watched on live TV as well. A somber day for those in Britain as they laid the Queen to rest, but not everyone shares the same sentiment. Meanwhile, Democrats are pouring millions of dollars into ads showing their support for abortion rights. Now, we're going to break down exactly how much one state is spending just to spread the word. Then, an 8th grader is facing disciplinary consequences for attacking a teacher at the school, and soulmates, we have that story.
Plus, the Queen Bee is the latest inductee in the Guinness World Records of Hall of Fame, and a member of Ludacris' entourage is facing murder charges. We have all that and so much more. This is our voice and our truth, so let's get it.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. So millions of Britons said their goodbyes today to Queen Elizabeth II in England. As millions watch in person and on television around the world, people who live in the countries colonized by the British are having mixed feelings about her death. While some Africans remember the Queen fondly for visits to their country, many think about slavery and the genocide inflicted on the African people by the British monarchy. Next to the Portuguese, the British were the largest slave exporters in the world. The empire continued its dominance over the continent well into the 20th century until Kenyans, Nigerians, and others fought and demanded their independence. While the royals have an estimated $28 billion in fortune, much of it is derived from colonial theft and slavery. We want to remember her in the totality of what the British monarchy stands for. Last week, the Bahamian Prime Minister, he came out and said that he is going to hold a referendum to remove Britain's King Charles III as the head of state, and they want to become a republic, and so they're going to vote on that. And they're not alone. A lot of other countries are coming out and saying that when the Queen was alive, they wanted her to apologize for all the years of colonialism and all of the years of slavery, and a lot of that did not happen, as we know. And so even some of the countries that aren't leaving, they're asking for King Charles now to apologize, hoping that will start a new relationship with a lot of these countries. So it's I can understand why they have these mixed feelings. I can understand taking the good with the bad, but I think that we would do our audience a disservice if we don't give them the totality of what the British monarch stands for as a whole.
You know, I've been shocked, honestly, since the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, how much we've given just the story. You know, of course, we were trying to figure out what was the equivalent of her in America for us. And some people were saying, because the British monarch, they still have like their own governments and things like that. So there are still people that are even higher than her. So we were like, okay, if she's not the president, if she's not Joe Biden passing away, what is she considered here? And people were like, well, maybe like Michael Jackson. But we watched, literally, I watched her procession for at least 2 hours this morning. And, I'm just still shocked that that Black Americans, we are giving it as much energy as we are, because we know the history of what her and her family has done to Black people. So I just, I care, but then I'm also just like, it's hard for me to give it a lot of energy based on the history.
Well, I, for a fact, when Princess Diana passed away, which is so unfortunate, I set my alarm clock to make sure I woke up for that. I did not for this, not showing disrespect, but again, the history of it all is what we have to talk about. But then you have people say, why have these conversations now? She's just been laid to rest. Well, when are we going to have this conversation? Because if we don't get ahead of it, how do we so-called put the pressure on for the new man that's coming in, the king that's coming in, saying, look, don't forget, here's what we try to solve and what we try to work on while she was here. Maybe you're the one that can make those changes that are needed, because it's long overdue, and we all can agree with that.
Yeah. There's this thing going around Twitter. We just had a picture on just a second ago a video of the crown that she's going to be buried with, and there's some, like a meme. I don't know if it's you even call it a meme, but there's something that's going around showing where each part of that crown, there it is right there, where parts of it were stolen from. India, Egypt. There was something else that she had that was stolen from South Africa. There's just, little things that over the years have been taken to, that they've used to accumulate their wealth from poorer countries.
Absolutely. So, and again, you can understand why the Portuguese, why the Africans are speaking up, because there's also something to say about feeling silenced, right? And so you feel like there's somebody in power, you don't want to speak up, but now you feel like, hey, with this new transfer of those who are the people that are going to be in power, maybe this is a good time for me to speak up on something that I've always wanted to say for a long time. So I understand the timing. Though bad for some, I feel like it does make sense for others. The accounting firm that used to work with the Trump organization is turning over documents related to his financial dealing to Congress. The House Oversight Committee has received its first trove of documents from Mazars USA. Now, this document, it comes from the time when Donald Trump took office as president and his early presidency. Now, soulmates, back in February, Mazars officials, they do say that they could no longer stand behind a decade of annual financial statements prepared for the Trump organization. Now, this panel will use the information from Mazars in its investigation of conflict of interest when Trump was in office.
Democrats are zeroing in on abortion as top issue against Republicans in the midterm election campaign. Take a look.
So we're going to have an election in 2022. If we take back the House and the Senate, I can assure you we'll have a vote on our bill. If the Democrats are in charge, I don't know if we'll ever have a vote on our bill.
Democrats are spending tens of millions of dollars on ads attacking the GOP of the issue of key battleground races that could determine the outcome of congressional and governor's races. $17 million has been spent in Pennsylvania to help Josh Shapiro, Democratic candidate for governor.
And Georgia State hopeful Stacey Abrams is pushing for voters to cast ballots in person the first week of early voting. Early voting in Georgia, it starts October 17th. The Abrams campaign is pushing for in-person voting because the new election laws that cut back the use of mail-in ballot drop boxes. Meanwhile, the race for Georgia governor is still deadlocked. Now, Abrams, she trails her opponent, Governor Brian Kemp, by only 2 percentage points. A Quinnipiac University poll says of likely voters says Kemp has 50% support, while Abrams is at 48%. Kemp narrowly beat Abrams back in 2018 for the governor's race.
And we're learning more details about the migrants sent to Martha's Vineyard. Immigration advocates say that Florida officials who put migrants on planes for Massachusetts lied to them and misled the migrants.
It could not be clearer that this is an attempt to ensure that these people are ordered removed, even as they try as hard as they can to comply with the instructions provided to them. There is no other reason to list as someone's mailing address a homeless shelter in Tacoma, Washington, when they ship him to Massachusetts. It is sickeningly cruel, throwing obstacles in the way of people fleeing violence and oppression, some of whom walked through 10 countries in the hopes of finding safety.
Boston immigration attorney Rachel Self says the falsified addresses were purposefully given to those migrants to make their stay in the U.S. more difficult. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis took credit for the flights from his state to Massachusetts. The Republican governor said he plans to continue the stunt of sending migrants elsewhere, using every penny available in the $12 million Freedom First budget allocated to the Florida Department of Transportation. The migrants are now being cared for at a military base in Cape Cod. And so the military base in Cape Cod, it looks like, they're saying that it looks like dorms, but honestly, it looks a little less dormy. It doesn't look really dormy. It's bunk beds, two or three different bunk beds in a room. That doesn't remind me of my college experience in a dorm at all. It feels very jail-like, if I will say, if I can say that. Also, too, this what they were promised, they were on private jets, private chartered jets and planes. So, of course, you think about the mindset of these individuals, right? You think, I'm on a jet, I'm going to go. They were promised months of free rent. They were promised jobs. And so literally before their arrival, an hour before they arrived, they were told, that this was going to be totally different. And we're not going to give you exactly what we promised you just to get them away, knowing that these people probably don't have the money to get back to where they came from. And it's like, where is the humanity for human life? Where is the humanity for human decency? I understand that you think that these people don't belong in your city, in your state, but how dare you move people under the auspice that they were going to have a better lifestyle and lie to them and then give them nothing on the other side?
Yeah. Demi, you are absolutely right. There's so much here. These people were lured from Texas to Florida, put on a plane, and then just to know everything that they had to go through. So one of the reporters interviewed one of the men who was part of the travelers, part of the migrants, and he said that when they got to Mexico, they had to go through part of the cartel, and part of the cartel, they were taxing them. And so they didn't have the money, and so because they didn't have the money, they took pliers and took 2 of his teeth as his payment so that they could pass through, right? So then when they get to the United States, they get to Texas, they get to San Antonio, they think, okay, we're finally safe. And then they meet a woman who tells them, you know, we're going to help you. We're going to get you somewhere safe. We're going to put you on a plane, give you jobs and housing. And then when they get there, they realize that they've been lied to and that none of that is happening. I mean, we've got to think about what these people have traveled through, what they've been through. And then when they get here, they think it's a safe haven, and it's not. And a lot of people online are making this, or they're bringing up they're calling it very similar to the reverse freedom rides of 1962, when a lot of black people were bused and put on not planes, but they were bused to Washington, D.C., Chicago, New York City from the South and promised housing and good jobs and things like that. And when they got there, there were, of course, none of that. And so this isn't a new tactic. They have been using this. The conservatives, racists, they've been using this tactics to get people from where they don't want them to a whole other city, a whole other state. And so it's like history repeating itself.
You just took the words out of my mouth.
You see it,
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And to go back to what Demi was talking about, where they had to stay, after what they've been through, they probably would take that situation right now, even though it's 3 bunk beds, the military base, I do understand that. But they will promise something much more better than that. And again, like what Mimi said, for history repeating itself, this is what the country's supposed to be all about, the land of the free, land of opportunities. So when they get here, knowing what they went through, for them to have to face this right away, what does that do to their self-esteem? What does it do to their confidence? All of that. We have to do better and be better. But you notice the states that are doing it, Florida and Texas, these are Republican-ran states that are all about going against the grain of making things right for our country. So I'm not surprised that they're doing what they're doing.
Not to mention, too, a larger conversation online, too, is that wondering about voting rights. Are these, because you wonder, you don't know the status of some of these people able to vote. Too, there's another conversation about, was this a ploy, also, too, about, trying to make sure that the Democrats don't win, because these are also people that could, if they're able to vote. Well, you know what? We'll go on to the next story, because it gets
deeper.
It gets so deep. We're gonna have to wrap up, because if I start going on it, it'll be a dark hole.
There's a lot more to this story. We'll have more for you so much. I promise you.
It's a lot more to it.
All right. Well, the federal trial of Baltimore State's attorney Marilyn Mosby won't be starting as scheduled this week. The judge in the case is ordering the postponement after a dispute over expert witness testimony. Mosby is charged with 4 counts of perjury and mortgage fraud. She's accused of falsely claiming a pandemic financial hardship in order to buy homes. They agreed with prosecutors who asked for more time to review testimony from an expert Mosby's defense team planned to place on the stand. The witness planned to testify Mosby's dormant travel business suffered due to the pandemic.
A former star of the reality TV show Welcome to Sweetie Pies could face life in prison for arranging the murder of his nephew. A federal grand jury found James Tim Norman guilty of conspiracy to commit murder for hire. Prosecutors say Norman hired 2 people to kill 21-year-old Andre Montgomery back in 2016. He then tried to cash in a $450,000 life insurance policy he took out on the young man a few months earlier. Now, prosecutors say Norman paid a stripper, Terica Ellis, $5,000 to lure his nephew to a site where he was shot to death. Travel Hill, he was also arrested for murder. Hill and Ellis, who were both convicted of the killing, both testified against Norman.
A Texas Board of Pardons is reversing its decision to grant George Floyd a posthumous pardon for a 2004 drug conviction. The change comes a year after the board voted unanimously to recommend they give the pardon to Floyd more than 2 years after his death. The board did not give a reason for the reversal. Floyd was arrested in 2004 for allegedly possessing crack cocaine. A judge says the officer who arrested him made up the existence of confidential informants to help build drug cases. Now, Floyd was killed 2 years ago by a Minneapolis cop. Floyd's family filed the pardon application on his behalf in April of 2021. Now, the family does say that it may reapply in 2 years.
An 8th grader in Texas is being charged with first-degree assault after allegedly attacking a teacher after she took his cell phone.
Go wait at the door. Go wait for your game. You don't touch a teacher's things.
A spokesperson for the Ector County School District says the boy will also face school disciplinary charges for the September 7th incident. It's not known what kind of injuries the teacher sustained, but she did not return to school last week. Watching this video was very disturbing to me, but this is the world we're going in, because I've seen kids at the age of 2 feel a certain way, right? If their parents try to take the phone away. Malachi, who's 9, he gets upset every now and then, but there's a comfort, right, where you can kind of test your parents. But to see this happen in the school district, where I think teachers are so underpaid, and then I see someone filming it, but no one jumping in to help, that doesn't make any sense at all. This is your teacher. This is the leader. This is the person you're supposed to respect. And to see that, that's a major problem. But that is what our country is coming to if we don't get ahead of it as parenting. Trust me.
Romeo, regardless of this being the teacher, the fact that this young boy thought that he could assault an adult, teacher aside for a second, because like you said, respect, some people respect their teachers, some people don't. The fact that this young boy attacked an adult like that felt so ballsy. To attack a grown-up, an adult, is beyond, a community service, is beyond, there was mental health. This little boy needs to be in jail. I don't even know if there's jail for eighth graders, right? For
Juvenile.
Exactly.
He already has another charge that's coming up.
Great, perfect. That's exactly where he needs to be. Because I'm happy that the teacher doesn't go back, because this is a classic case of where are the parents? Because why would you ever in your life think that you can, now we can go back to teacher. Now we can go back to, why would you ever in your life think that you can assault me in that way? He dragged her as if this was a street fight.
He dragged her and hit her head
on I mean, he was literally by her ponytail. I mean, the disrespect. I would have all the smoke for the parents, not as a violent smoke, but I would want a serious conversation with the parents to know, what are you teaching your child to make him feel? Where does he even learn that behavior from, that you can drag a teacher across the floor?
They're letting the phone raise him, probably, because it's so easy for a parent to do this and going about their day, not realizing that this is what they're getting sucked into. Don't you agree to that?
Both of you just took all the words, because there is no excuse for something like this. And the teacher, I don't blame her for coming back, because not only would I have the smoke for the students, I'd have the smoke for the teacher, and not the teacher, the school, right? Because I'm suing everybody, everybody involved. So I can't come back, right? Because now I'm traumatized. I was beat up in class. No one did anything. Was there no security guards? There was no what? I mean, I don't even know how it stopped. We weren't given that information, but what it looks like, it went on for quite some time.
It's just sad that no other students got involved. And when I saw this, either the same day or the day before, I seen something on social media where a parent showed her house, where she took the phone from her son, and he wrecked the whole house. He tore it up.
Yeah, that was crazy.
He put a refrigerator in there. I was just like,
but Romeo,
what are we doing?
I'm so sorry. I'm not teaching my child to jump in. I'm not. I wouldn't. The anger that he had, I think someone needed to go get a teacher or get someone. But I'm not jumping into. I wouldn't teach my child to jump in to also add into it, because then you have 2 young children fighting, and he clearly doesn't respect the teacher, so he's not going to respect another child.
That's a great point. We couldn't even play the entire video because the kids in the back were saying, you know what I mean? They were engaging. They were not helping. They did not even leave the classroom.
Very disturbing.
So we'll see what happens with that, you guys.
We will.
All right. So Jackson's crisis, their water crisis, may not be over for now. The city lifting its boil water advisory last week after it had been in effect for 40 days. Officials there say the water system is still in need of hundreds of millions of dollars to improve it. The Environmental Protection Agency says it is conducting a top-to-bottom review of what happened to cause the city's water system to collapse after a storm in August. Jackson is the state's largest city and home to 150,000 people, 80% of which are black.